Updating the paperwork process. While the current paperwork process at Hospice at VNS is working, just like the wheel, it's kind of outdated. Do we want to change the wheel? No, we do not. Do we want to update it to a current, better mode? Yes, we do. Something to ponder. While HVNS has been providing home care for a very long time, since 1947, updating everything else in the business has been with the times, except for the paperwork process. While the current paperwork process is working, just like the wheel, a slight upgrade can make things a lot easier. A little history of HVNS. HVNS is part of VNSA Systems, which is part of Akron General and Cleveland Clinic now. We are a leader of the home care since 1947. We've been providing, we provide home care and hospice care in the community, in Summit and Stark counties since 1947. We also have a skilled nursing care. We have a rehabilitation therapies, hospice palliative care, medical equipment, and supplies. If you would like more information, there's a website that we can go to see that. Today, I'm going to discuss with you using critical thinking to achieve the heart of success of creating a new paperwork system at Hospice VNS. To do this, we have to use critical thinking. On top of critical thinking, we use the obtain process to achieve the ultimate end of problem solving the paperwork problem that is presented at Hospice VNS. The first process in the step is going to be outline the question. Next step will be break down the issues, analyze the problem, imagine the solution, and notify the stakeholders. First off, outlining the question. We use a SWOT analysis to outline the question, what is the exact problem that we're looking to fix? This one, it's the paperwork process. The method that will... What's my spot? The SWOT scans internal and external environments. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We try to find the strengths and the weaknesses within the company and focus on those to improve the paperwork process that's there. And then we also look at opportunities and threats that might be there to also improve. In the next step, breaking down the issues, we use an issue tree. Why is the paperwork process taking so long on a single visit? We take the large paperwork process that is currently in place, we break it down to a single piece of paper that from start to end, and we follow that piece of paper. When we go down to a single visit, it can take up to 3 to 4 days to process that paper from beginning to the actual patient's file. We need to have a better technology to improve the process, combine steps to streamline them, and redesign the paperwork itself. The paperwork itself is kind of bulky and there's a lot of information involved on the paperwork itself that slows the initial process down. Combining steps to streamline, the paper is touched 3 or 4 different times by the same person. We're looking at the situation. We're looking at it from the point of view, why do we have to have that same person touch the paper 3 or 4 different times? Technology is beyond paper at this point in time. It is 2016. We have iPads that are available now that people can do all their data entry, and it'll immediately be entered and sent over to one person that hits print, takes a piece of paper and puts it in the patient's file. However, at Hospice VNS, we do not have that option. Electronic files with paper end result, streamline the process also with fewer steps, and then streamlining the paperwork to include more information. Analyzing the problem, we see here we use a hypothesis tree to analyze the problem. Using the hypothesis tree, it shows that there are multiple supporting hypotheses to prove the main point. Sorry, these are kind of hard to read. Utilize the people that are already in place to do less steps, to make the process from 10 steps down to 5 steps possibly. new technology to make it improved, and the paperwork to be more computer linked and computer based. Once the hypothesis has been proven true, other ideas have come into light. We started off with the idea that we needed to go with better technology. It's kind of come to the realization that maybe better technology isn't the way to go. It would be simply just taking the initial problem and streamlining it down. And the next step of the obtained process is imagine the solution. And as soon as I hear imagine the solution, I think of this quote by John Lennon. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Obviously it's a very popular song, but when I think of that, presenting new paperwork process to a company that has done it since 1947, they kind of look at me like I'm a dreamer. I believe that we can achieve this if we can all just achieve it as one. And the next part of it will be notifying the stakeholders. First off, we would have to, within notifying the stakeholders, we have to recognize who the stakeholders are. Within hospice of ENS, it's pretty much anybody that touches the paperwork. A non-stakeholder that doesn't even, or a stakeholder that doesn't even know they're a stakeholder is the patients themselves. If we can improve the paperwork process, it'll free up other people to provide better care, better end-of-life care for the patients that we provide to. We have to build that trust with the stakeholders. We have to let the people that do the paperwork now know that, and get them to trust that in the end it will be a better process and that it will be a better way to go. We have to put the stakeholders first, so we have to listen to them. We have to understand what they want, what they don't want. Hopefully we can identify to them and prioritize their importance about how the paperwork process needs to go into the future. This is an example of an action plan that we put into place. We went ahead and set up that each step that initially we'll have people that are unfamiliar with the paperwork process to sit and actually learn the paperwork process. We put somebody in charge of it. The current manager and the volunteer manager would be in charge of taking care of that. We'll have a start date and an end date, or I'm sorry, a status. Right now that is currently in progress. Once this stage ends, we'll go down to the possibility of eliminating some steps, combining some steps, also including maybe the new technology to go from there. Again, we have people responsible, and then the status of that, and then on from there on to the next step of redesigning the paperwork itself if needed. And the next step, the contingency plan followed up by after the action plan. We always want to make sure that we have kind of all of our T's crossed and I's crossed and everything, or I's dotted, T's crossed. So we want to set up a contingency plan. The problem, or the second part of the action plans, eliminating steps, was kind of a gray area. So I wanted to set it up that we have one manager that is going to make the final choice whether all the elements can be eliminated that have been suggested to be eliminated. Now that we broke it down into a million of pieces, we're going to put it all back together. In conclusion, we've decided the paperwork problem at the HABNS needs to be evaluated with possible new technology. The idea that updating the process will be extremely helpful to not only to our employees within, but also the patients that we currently have. Critical thinking will be applied to solve the problem. We'll bring in multiple people to have potential ideas and suggestions on the paperwork process. How each step of the process will use the obtained process through it to make sure that we hit every detail and we break it down. Various applications that are applied to help achieve this. Hypothesis tree and the issue trees and so on and so forth would be used. Instead of being stuck in a rut, following in a hamster wheel, we want to go places and we want to make our paperwork a better process and move forward.